You have started over so many times that the starting itself has become the habit. You know the feeling. That Monday morning electricity, the clean notebook, the alarm set with genuine intention, the quiet certainty that this time will be different. And then Wednesday arrives, and with it the first small negotiation. And by Friday the notebook is somewhere under a pile of other things you meant to do, and the alarm has been pushed back by 30 minutes, and the certainty has become a memory of a feeling you are not entirely sure was ever real. If you have lived inside that cycle, not once, not twice, but enough times that you have stopped telling people about your new beginnings because the embarrassment of stopping has become more familiar than the hope of continuing, then this story is for you. Stay with it. Let it find the place inside you that the self-help books and the motivational speeches never quite reached. And if it does find that place, come back to Ancient Wisdom Tea, because there is a whole world of stories here that were made for exactly the person you are trying to become. The year is 1247, and a young ink merchant named Kenji lives in a small coastal town south of Kyoto, where the sea air carries the smell of cedar and salt and the particular quietness of a life that has not yet decided what it wants to be. He is not suffering in any way the world would recognize. His shop does reasonable business, his neighbors respect him, his hands are skilled, and his mind is quick, and he has, by almost any external measure, made something of himself. But there is a hollow place inside him that sits just below the ribs, in the region where ambition lives when it has nowhere to go. He feels it most in the early mornings, when the town is still dark and quiet, and he lies in his sleeping mat knowing he should rise, knowing there is something he intended to do, some practice he promised himself, some version of himself he has been trying to become for longer than he can honestly remember. He lies there, and the negotiation begins. The same negotiation, the same voice, the same outcome. He has tried before, many times before. He rose early for 3 weeks one spring and then didn't. He practiced calligraphy until his strokes became almost elegant, and then stopped for reasons he cannot now fully recall. He copied sutras with devotion for a month and abandoned them with a guilt that faded faster than it should have. He is not lazy. This is the part that confuses and torments him most. He is not a man who lacks intelligence or desire. He is a man who begins with genuine fire and then watches it die every time in the same way, with the same helpless recognition that this is the pattern and he does not know how to break it. Being smart enough to see your own failure clearly while being unable to stop it is perhaps the most specific and underappreciated form of suffering a person can carry. Kenji carries it every day, behind his merchant's smile, behind the careful strokes of his ink brush, behind the reasonable life he has built around the edges of the person he cannot manage to become. One autumn, a traveling monk arrives in the town. He comes from the north, heading south briefly before returning north again. A man in transit who carries almost nothing except a small wrapped bundle and a quality of presence so complete and undisturbed that people move slightly out of his way without understanding why. His name is Ryokan. He is somewhere in his late 60s, though he carries his age the way mountains carry snow, not as a burden, but as a natural accumulation of what has fallen and stayed. His face is not peaceful in the soft, retreat poster way. It is still in the way that something is still when it has burned through all its turbulence and come out the other side of the fire into a clarity that is not comfortable but is absolutely, unequivocally real. Kenji watches him from across the market square and feels something he cannot immediately name. It takes him a moment to identify it, because it is unfamiliar and arrives mixed with several other feelings. It is recognition, not of the man, but of the quality. The quality of someone who has solved a problem that Kenji has been failing to solve his entire adult life. The quality of someone who does not negotiate with himself. He crosses the square before he has consciously decided to. He bows. He says something carefully neutral about the monk's journey. And then, because Kenji has never been entirely comfortable with indirection, he asks the real question. He says, "How does a man like you remain so still when the world is so full of noise and interruption and reason to stop?" The monk looks at him for a long time, the kind of looking that makes you aware of how much you are usually not looked at, how most people's attention slides across the surface of you and moves on. Ryokan's attention does not slide. It arrives and it stays, and beneath it, Kenji feels slightly transparent, as though the question he asked was heard, but also the question underneath the question, the real one, the one about the hollow place below the ribs and the Monday mornings and the abandoned sutras. Then the monk says 6 words and continues walking. The river does not decide to flow. Kenji returns to his shop and does not work. He lights his lamp and sits with those 6 words until the oil runs low and the flame begins to gutter. The river does not decide to flow. He has built his entire understanding of discipline around effort, around clenching, around summoning will the way you summon courage before something frightening, a temporary gathering of force applied to a problem. But a river does not clench. A river does not summon itself each morning. A river flows because flowing is the architecture of its nature, the structure it has worn into the landscape of itself through years of going the same way, cutting the same channel deeper and deeper until the water has no other direction available to it. The question is not how the river stays motivated. The river has no motivation. The river has a channel, and the channel is everything. He follows Ryokan north. The monk does not invite him. He does not turn him away either. He registers Kenji's presence at the edge of his camp the following morning with something that is not quite acknowledgement and not quite indifference. More like the way a current acknowledges a leaf that has joined it, incorporating without adjusting. They walk for 9 days. Through mountain passes where the cold has a weight to it, a solidity, as though the air itself has thickened against the bone. Through pine forests so dense and silent that sound seems to have agreed to stay outside. Past frozen streams and waymarked paths and shrines so old that the offerings left at them have composted back into the earth they came from. Kenji talks on the first day. On the second day, he talks less. By the third day, he has understood something about the silence that makes him reluctant to break it. Not because silence is required, but because the silence itself is communicating something he is not yet fluent enough to translate, but is beginning, faintly, to hear. The monk walks with complete attention. Not the performed attention of someone demonstrating mindfulness, the real kind, the kind that simply notices what is there because it has emptied itself of what is not. Each step placed deliberately, each breath drawn without waste. Kenji watches him and begins to feel the extraordinary ordinariness of his own distraction, the way his mind runs ahead to the temple, then back to the shop he has left in his assistant's hands, then sideways into worry, then forward into anticipation, then nowhere in particular. It is like watching a river that cannot find its channel, spreading thin across flat ground, losing itself in all directions. The temple sits against the mountain, with the permanence of something that was always going to be there, that the mountain has simply been waiting to reveal. It is small and severe and clean in the way that things become clean when they have been tended every day for a very long time without exception, not spotlessly clean, not performatively clean, but clean in the way that attention leaves a surface, worn smooth, cared for, present. 3 other monks live there. They acknowledge Kenji's arrival, the way deep water acknowledges a stone dropped into it. A brief disturbance of surface, rings spreading outward, and then the stillness returning, deeper than before. The first morning, the bell rings before dawn. Not a soft beginning, not an invitation, a declaration. It cuts through his sleep with the authority of something that has been ringing at the same moment for decades and doesn't intend to negotiate that schedule with him or with anyone. He lies for a single confused moment inside the noise, and then his body, responding to something older than thought, rises. In the courtyard, the monks are already arranged, already present, already breathing with the specific quality of breath that belongs to practice rather than sleep, a breath that has somewhere to go. He joins them, clumsy and cold, conspicuous in his clumsiness. No one adjusts their position. No one looks at him. The practice does not pause to welcome him. This is the first teaching, delivered without a word. The practice doesn't need you. It doesn't require your mood to be right, your motivation to be high, your conditions to be favorable. It simply continues. And the only question is whether you continue with it. The days unfold in a way that first unsettles Kenji, and then begins, gradually, to do something else, entirely. Every morning, the bell at the same moment. Not approximately. Not roughly. Exactly. As though time itself has agreed to hold still at this point each day and wait. The prayers in the same order, each word in its place. No improvisation, no variation based on how the monks feel about the text that morning. The physical work divided identically. The sweeping, the water carrying, the tending of the garden, the preparation of the meal, each task assigned, each task completed. The day running like a piece of machinery that someone built a very long time ago and has simply maintained ever since. Nothing accelerated when energy is high. Nothing abbreviated when the cold is deep and the knees ache and the spirit is low. The same volume of practice, given the same quality of attention, regardless of the weather outside or the weather inside. Kenji wants to ask about this. He wants to ask why the same prayers when there are so many other prayers. Why the same order when a different order might bring freshness. Why the same hour when surely there are mornings when the body needs another hour of sleep to function at its best. He does not ask, partly from courtesy, mostly because he is beginning to suspect that the question itself is the problem, that the asking of it is the sound his old self makes, the self that has always found a reason to adjust, to improve, to optimize, to make the thing slightly different tomorrow in a way that allows him to postpone it today. On the 7th evening, during the walk that Ryokan takes each night along the edge of the cliff, where the mountain drops away into the valley, the monk speaks. Not a lecture, not a prepared teaching, an observation offered the way you might pass someone a tool that they need, without ceremony, without explanation of how to use it, trusting that they will figure that out themselves. He says, "You have been here a week. Tell me what you see in the monks." And Kenji says, carefully, that he sees discipline. He sees commitment of a kind he has not encountered before. He sees men who do not appear to waver. Ryokan is quiet for a long time. The valley below is full of small lights. The wind comes across the cliff edge in long, cold pulses. Then he says, "You are watching men swim and thinking their strength is in their arms." What Kenji comes to understand over the following weeks is not discipline in the sense he has always understood the word. Not the gritted teeth, white-knuckle gathering of will. What he comes to understand is something closer to architecture. The monks have not built stronger willpower than other men. They have built conditions in which willpower is almost entirely unnecessary. And this distinction, once he sees it, rearranges everything. Every time a man must decide whether to begin, he is opening a door through which his weakest self can speak. And the weakest self is not weak in the way we imagine weakness. Trembling, easily recognized, obviously defeated. The weakest self is articulate. It has good reasons. It has consulted your well-being. It speaks in the language of wisdom and balance and self-care and the genuine insight that tomorrow is also a valid day. The weakest self says, "You need more sleep," and this is true sometimes. It says, "One missed day does not define a practice," and this is also true technically. It says, "The conditions are not quite right," and this will also occasionally be accurate. The terror of the weakest self is not that it lies. It is that it tells the truth selectively, at exactly the moment when the truth is most useful to stopping. The monks have removed the moment of decision. The bell rings, the body moves. Between the ringing and the movement, there is no space. No space means no door. No door means no entry point for the voice. The architecture of the temple is not physical. It is temporal. It is rhythmic. It is the construction of a life in which the question of whether to begin never arises, because beginning is simply what happens next. The way exhaling is simply what happens after inhaling. The way the next step is simply what happens after the last one. Kenji thinks about every habit he has attempted and abandoned. He does not think of them as failures anymore. He thinks of them as architectures that were missing a load-bearing wall. Every single one of them preserved the right to reconsider. Every single one of them kept the door open, and every single one of them eventually showed him exactly what happens when you leave a door open long enough. Something walks through it. He makes a decision. A real one, not a private one. One evening, after the meal is cleared and the lamps are lit, and the monks are settled in the particular quality of evening stillness that the temple produces like weather, Kenji asks to speak. They look at him with mild attention. He has been here nearly 3 weeks and is still in every meaningful sense a visitor, present but not yet of the place, the way a stone dropped in a stream is present in the water but has not yet been shaped by it. He stands. He speaks clearly in the hearing of every man in the room and of whatever listens in old mountains, of whatever resides in walls that have absorbed 40 years of prayer. He says, "I am going to rise with the bell every morning for 90 days. Not one morning will I remain in my mat after it rings. I will practice calligraphy for 30 minutes each morning after prayer. The same 30 strokes in the same order with the same brush held the same way, kneeling every morning without variation. I will do this until the practice is no longer an act of will, but an act of nature. Until I am not someone who practices calligraphy, but someone for whom calligraphy is as natural and unquestioned as breathing." Ryokan says nothing. One of the younger monks looks at him with something that is not quite amusement and not quite doubt. Something more complicated, the expression of someone who has stood in that same place and knows exactly what is coming. That night, Kenji cannot sleep. not from dread, from the unfamiliar and slightly terrifying sensation of having made something irreversible. He has declared himself in front of witnesses. He has planted a flag in ground he cannot now pretend he did not claim. In the morning the bell will ring, and every man in this temple will know, simply by watching, whether his body rises or remains, whether he is the man he declared himself to be, or the man he has always been. The distance between those two versions of himself has never felt so measurable, so specific, so close. The bell rings. He rises. The first week is difficult in the way that building anything is difficult before the foundation sets. Not because the work is beyond him, but because nothing is yet automatic. Every action requires a conscious investment of will. The brush is unfamiliar in the cold morning. His strokes are stiff and unbeautiful. His knees ache from kneeling. His mind wanders constantly toward the warmth of the mat he left and the sleep he interrupted. But he completes the strokes, all 30, in the correct order, every morning. And he begins to notice something he did not expect. The completing itself has a weight, not the weight of accomplishment. It is too small a thing, daily, for that kind of satisfaction. A different weight, the weight of a brick placed. One brick, 30 strokes, but placed. The second week brings a new and more sophisticated obstruction. His commitment is holding. The time is fixed. The practice is happening. But he finds himself varying the form. Some mornings he stands instead of kneeling because his knees are particularly sore. Some mornings he does the strokes quickly to be done with it. Some mornings he slows them down and adds a 31st stroke because the 30 seem to end too abruptly. He is honoring the commitment, technically, while quietly undermining it structurally. His mind has found the loophole that remains when you close the first door. It has moved the negotiation from whether to do the thing to how to do the thing. And a negotiation about how is still a negotiation. He speaks to Ryokan. The monk listens without expression. Then he stands and leads Kenji to the temple's oldest garden, where a stone path curves between ancient maple and deep green moss. Stones placed so long ago that the moss has grown up around their edges and made them permanent, part of the ground. Ryokan walks the path. Slowly, deliberately, each stone receiving the same weight of attention, each step placed with the same quality of presence. Then he walks it again, identically. Then a third time, no variation, same pace, same pauses, same attention given to the same stones in the same way. He says, "The path does not change, so I arrive at the same place each time. If you change the path, you are always arriving somewhere new. The practice is not the thing you are practicing. The practice is the arriving at the same place, through the same path, until you have worn a channel so deep and clear that arriving there is simply what your life does." Kenji returns to his mat that evening and decides 30 strokes, always the same 30, always in the same order, always kneeling, always with the same brush. He will not decide anymore. Deciding is the enemy. Deciding is the door. He will simply execute what has already been decided in the past by a version of himself that had the clarity to make the right choice. His only job each morning is to honor that earlier decision and not allow the morning version of himself, groggy and cold and full of reasonable alternatives, to reopen a conversation that is finished. The fourth week brings the most sophisticated attack yet. His mind, having been denied the arguments of when and whether and exactly how, discovers philosophy. It tells him that true mastery requires variation, that the great calligraphers did not achieve greatness through repetition of the same stroke, but through exploration of the infinite possibilities within the form. It tells him he is training his hand, but ossifying his spirit. It sounds almost convincing. It sounds like the kind of thing a serious artist would say. It sounds, in short, exactly like the voice that has defeated him every time before, dressed differently this time, more intellectually respectable, but recognizable at the bone level if he is paying the right kind of attention. He makes the first stroke. The voice continues, eloquently. He makes the second, less eloquently. He makes the fifth. It is quieter now, as though the movement of his hand through the familiar sequence is gradually starving it of air. By the 15th stroke, it is gone, not refuted, not defeated in argument, simply absent because argument requires stillness, and his hands are moving through a pattern that is beginning to know itself. And in that knowing, there is no room for the voice to stand. He understands something in this moment that he will spend years articulating to others. The voice of postponement has no power over a man already in motion. It only has power in the gap before beginning. Once you have begun, truly begun, moved the first piece, made the first stroke, taken the first step, the voice is dispossessed. It has nowhere to stand. The entire battle is in those first moments, in the transition from stillness to motion, from potential to actual. Close that gap fast enough, and the voice misses its window entirely. On the 31st morning, Kenji wakes before the bell. Not slightly before. 3 full minutes before, in the complete dark, his body already oriented toward rising before his mind has fully arrived. He lies there for a moment, surprised. His body has done something without asking his mind for permission. It has begun to learn the schedule at a level beneath thought, in the deep, wordless architecture of what the body does when it is given the same cue in the same context enough times. He feels something he will later describe as a loosening, as though a rope he has been pulling against his entire life has gone slightly slack, not because the resistance is gone, but because he is no longer pulling against it from the outside. He has moved to the inside of the channel. Then comes the 40th day, and with it the test that cannot be prepared for by planning, only by having built the right kind of consistency in the days before it. He is sick. Not dramatically, not the kind of sickness that carries its own clear permission to stop and no reasonable person would argue with. The ordinary kind. The kind that makes everything slightly heavier, slightly less worthwhile, slightly more optional. The kind his weakest self has been patiently waiting for, because dramatic obstacles can be pre-solved. Kenji has written them down, every obstacle that has ever stopped him, and solved each one in advance, a practice he learned from watching the monks' automatic responses to physical disruption. When the courtyard floods, they move to the hall. When the hall is cold, they add a robe. There is no meeting. There is no discussion. The bell rings, and the response is already written in the structure of how they live. But ordinary sickness cannot be pre-solved. It simply arrives, reasonable and persuasive, and asks, "Surely not today." He thinks about the river. He rises. He makes his strokes. They are the worst he has made since the first day. Trembling, uneven, the pressure inconsistent, the forms degraded by the fever working in his hands. They are also the most important strokes he has ever made, not because of their quality, which is objectively poor, because of what they prove. Not to the monks, not to Ryokan, to the part of himself that has always believed, with quiet and durable certainty, that he will eventually stop. That the pattern is the pattern, and he is the pattern. That part of him is wrong. He can feel it, faintly, beginning to lose its confidence, like a wall that has not yet fallen, but has taken a crack that will matter. The 58th day brings a snowstorm that buries the mountain in 3 feet of justification. The paths are impassable. The water for ink is frozen solid in its vessel. He melts snow against his palms, working slowly in the grey pre-dawn light until enough water pools to thin the ink stick against the stone. He kneels in the corner of the cooking room, away from the fire, because he has learned that comfort makes him lazy in ways he cannot afford right now, and he makes his 30 strokes. They are adequate. They are continuous. They are the river. Around this time, something changes in how the monks relate to him. Not dramatically, not with warmth or ceremony, but the quality of attention they give him has shifted in a way he can feel without being able to name. It is the difference between being watched and being seen. They watch new visitors. They see people who have made a certain kind of choice and kept it past the point where most people turn back. There is a form of respect that does not announce itself in any way you can point to, that exists entirely in the quality of stillness another person holds in your presence. He is receiving it now. He does not mention it. He does not ask for confirmation. He simply notices it and files it in the place where evidence goes when it is building towards something he has not yet fully understood. Ryokan walks with him on the 65th evening. They go to the cliff edge where the valley below is full of the amber light of wood fires in village homes, smoke rising in the still cold air, the whole valley looking from above like a living thing, breathing slowly in and out. The monk asks, "Do you know the difference between the man you were on the first day and the man you are today?" Kenji says he thinks so, but he is not certain he can describe it. And Ryokan says, "You do not need to describe it. The description is for other people. The reality is for you. Something in you has been rewritten, not improved. Rewritten? You were one kind of person, and you are becoming a different kind of person. And the 65 days of continuous practice are not the achievement. They are the mechanism of the rewriting. They are how the new channel is cut." He is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "The frightening thing about the practice is not how hard it is. The frightening thing is how much of you it is quietly replacing." They stand in the cold and watch the valley breathe. The 79th day. A messenger arrives from Kenji's town, carrying the particular energy of someone who has traveled urgently and expects that urgency to be immediately adopted by the person they are delivering it to. His business partner has made a serious error. The accounts are disordered. The ink suppliers are waiting for decisions that only Kenji can make. The messenger says, "You must come now. These are real things. These are the things that matter. This temple is very peaceful, but it will still be here after you have dealt with the actual world." Kenji reads the message twice. He feels the pull, the familiar gravitational force of real life exerting itself against the practice, trying to establish a hierarchy in which the practice is the optional thing, the extra thing, the thing that gets done when the important things are handled, which is to say almost never. He looks at the messenger. He says, "I will come tomorrow morning." He does not say this to be difficult. He says it because tomorrow morning he will rise with the bell, make his 30 strokes, and then begin the journey south. Because the practice is not the thing he does when he has time. The practice is the structure inside which everything else happens. Remove the structure, and you do not have more time for the important things. You have a pile of important things and no structure to support them. He makes his strokes that night by lamplight, while the messenger waits impatiently in the next room. All 30? In order. In the same quality of attention he would give them at 5 in the morning, refreshed and calm. The messenger does not understand. Kenji no longer requires him to. He travels home. He continues to rise at the same hour. He finds a flat stone in his sleeping quarters and places it where his practice mat was. He procures the same ink, the same brush. He kneels on unfamiliar floor in familiar posture and makes the same 30 strokes in the same order, and the practice continues, not because the conditions are the same, they are entirely different, but because he has understood at last that the practice was never about the conditions. Conditions are what you negotiate with when you have not yet decided. He has decided. The deciding is over. Only the doing remains, and the doing has its own momentum now, its own gravity, its own pull toward continuation. On the 90th morning, he wakes before the bell by 5 minutes. He makes his strokes in the early dark, all 30, in order, in complete silence. And then he sits with what he has done, not with pride, exactly, but with the particular quality of recognition that comes when you discover that a story you have been telling yourself about yourself, the story of the person who starts and stops, the person whose fire burns bright and brief, the person who cannot be trusted to keep his own promises to himself. That story is no longer accurate. Something has been changed in the record. Not erased, changed. He is not someone who never struggled. He is someone who struggled and continued. He is not someone for whom discipline is easy. He is someone who built the architecture that makes discipline unnecessary. He is not the same person who stood in the market square watching a monk walk by and feeling the hollow place below the ribs ache with recognition of everything he was not. He is, for the first time in his life, the person he intended to become. He returns to the temple once more. Before the spring thaw changes, the mountain passes. Ryokan is in the courtyard when he arrives, standing in the cold morning with the stillness of someone who has been there for decades and will be there for decades more, unchanged by weather, unchanged by season, unchanged by the accumulation of days in the way that stone is unchanged by wind. Not because it has not been touched, but because the touching has shaped it into something more completely itself. The monk looks at him for a long time, that deep, arriving attention. Then he says simply, "The river." And Kenji says, "Does not decide to flow." And for the first time since he heard those words in the market square and carried them up a mountain and into 9 weeks of practice, they are not a teaching. They are not a metaphor. They are not even words in any meaningful sense. They are simply a description of what he has become. In the years that follow, Kenji becomes the kind of man that other men study from a distance, with that complicated mixture of awe and unease. He is not intimidating in the usual ways. He is not loud or aggressive or unusually talented. He is simply, relentlessly, unervingly consistent. He rises at the same hour. He makes his practice. He continues when others stop. He continues when he himself would once have stopped. And people who know him long enough begin to notice something that unsettles them without their being able to say exactly why. He does not seem to be efforting. He does not seem to be gritting his teeth against the difficulty. He simply does what he does, the way a river does what a river does, and the consistency is not impressive in the way that great feats are impressive. It is frightening in the way that certainty is frightening, in the way that meeting someone who has resolved something you have not yet resolved makes you aware of your own irresolution. Young men come to him eventually, the way young men go to anyone who has what they want and who seems to have genuinely found it, rather than simply performed finding it. They come with the question he once carried like a stone, and he tells them what took him 9 weeks on a cold mountain to understand. He tells them that the practice does not begin with motivation. Motivation is weather. It changes. The practice begins with architecture, with removing the moment of choice, with making a declaration in front of witnesses, real ones, people whose recognition you value and whose disappointment you fear in the way the ancient part of your brain fears exclusion from the tribe. With locking the time so that time is no longer a variable your weakest self can adjust. With locking the form so that your mind cannot move the negotiation from when to what, and feel like it has honored the commitment while quietly gutting it. With writing down every obstacle that has ever stopped you and deciding in advance, in a moment of clarity, what you will do when each one arrives. Because when obstacles arrive, they bring chaos, and chaos is where the weakest self lives and thrives. And you cannot fight from inside the chaos. You can only fight by having already decided from outside it. And then, he tells them, comes the part that no system can give you, and no teacher can deliver, and no amount of preparation can produce. You simply have to continue past the point where you have always stopped before. Not heroically, not dramatically, quietly, one morning at a time, one set of strokes, one brick placed, until the day you wake before the bell and your body is already moving, and you realize that the thing you have been trying to build has been quietly, without announcement, without ceremony, without your permission almost, replaced the thing you used to be. You will not feel it as triumph. You will feel it as the absence of a struggle that used to be constant. You will feel it as the sudden discovery that a weight you have been carrying so long you forgot it was separate from. You has been set down somewhere along the road, and you are lighter than you knew you could be. And the path ahead looks different from the path behind. And you are moving along it not because you decided to move, but because moving is what you now are. The whispering from the doorways never entirely stops. There will always be people who watch the consistency of others and call it obsession, who watch the discipline and call it imbalance, who watch the practice and say it is not normal, as though normal is a destination worth protecting. Let them say it. Kenji learned long ago that their discomfort is not your problem and is not your guide. Their whisper is the sound of one world commenting on another, and you are no longer living in their world. You have built a different one, quieter, harder, more real. The river does not explain itself to the banks. If this story reached something in you that has been waiting to be reached, if something in you that is tired of stopping is ready to begin in a different way, with architecture instead of hope, with structure instead of motivation, then come back to ancient wisdom tea. These stories have been here for a long time, and they will keep being here, patient as a mountain, waiting for the moment you are ready to receive what they have always had for you. There is more, and the person you are working to become deserves every last word of it.